Good evening, everyone. It's Jackie Rose, founder of Grieving Moms Finding Hope. I am so glad that you are here, and I just want to welcome all of you, especially to you mamas that are new. My deepest apologies, not apologies, but my condolences to all of you that have just lost a child. As my dear friend and guest that I'm going to introduce here in a minute have said, you know, um, grief is it's a thing that you're going to have all your life, but you will learn, especially tonight with the tools that Jessica's going to give you in order to help you to be able to get through this. So once again, I see there's some people that are on here, and I'm just going to call out anybody that has just watched for a long time and they're a little bit shy, they don't want to comment in here. Please do, because we'd really like to know who you are. I mean, I even look at names, and after this program is over, I'll go back and comment and even pray for you guys. And so there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's all about this beautiful community of moms that just want to hang out together and learn how to navigate through this grief. So let me introduce my new friend. This is Jessica Frasier. She is, I'm going to read because I too much to memorize. She is a distinguished licensed professional counselor, boasting a rich tapestry of qualifications, including certified integrative mental health professional, certified trauma practitioner, and advanced grief recovery method specialist. We all know that we could use that. As the visionary founder of Hope Again Counseling, Jessica exemplifies a commitment to holistic mental wellness. Her journey began at the University of Texas of the Permian Basin, where she earned her master's degree in community and school counseling in 2015. Driven by personal loss experiences, Jessica has cultivated a profound passion for guiding individuals through the labyrinth of grief, positioning herself not just as a counselor, but as a compassionate companion on the path to healing. And I could go on, and I will tell you that in my Zoom that I had with Jessica a few weeks ago, that is a word that I would use to describe her, which is compassionate. And I believe that if you have gone through any type of grief and you want to do this as a career, you've got to have some compassion. You can't just come to the table with someone that has experienced this with a textbook and trying to fix them, right, Jessica? So she's going to introduce herself and share a little bit about her journey, and then
Right.
she's going to share some things with you about why she does it and some tools to help you. And I'll say hi to Karen, and I'm going to let Jessica go through and talk, and I will intermittently come back and say hi, but I will be looking for those comments of where you're viewing from. And so Jessica, for instance, is in Texas. Anybody from Texas, we want to get like a hands up or something like that. So hi, Lynn and Debbie. Anyway, without further ado, Jessica, we'd love to hear your heart.
Debbie's from Waco. She's by me.
Oh yeah, Debbie. Yes, she's from Waco. We're going to see her.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a little bit of
Nice. Well, hi. Welcome. Thanks. I'm hosting. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. You're a little bit frozen. I don't know if that's going to clear itself up.
Sandra's from Houston, north of Houston. A couple of Texas folks
There
tonight.
you go. There you got your fan club right there.
Well, I am happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here, Jessica.
Do you want me to jump in and tell a little bit about my story?
Yeah, share your story. I can tell there's a bit of a delay, so I can see when you're freezing up. But yeah, just go ahead and share, a little bit about your story and how you got yourself into, this counseling and emphasizing on that horrible thing of grief. But we need you.
Yeah. So, my I think most mental health professionals have some sort of story. I told Jackie this when we first met. And people say, "Why do you do what you do?" I will say most people in my field have experienced something, some story, and it's led them to help others. And mine is full of grief. It's full of grief and loss. Um, Probably 4 years old until really present day, June 30th, my grandpa died. So in my entire life, there's been um, major losses in my life. And I will say that there's been a few key losses that were significant enough to change the course of my life. And so I will say when I was almost 13, when I was 12 years old, my stepdad died by suicide. And I learned really unhealthy ways to deal with grief. And then a few short years later, so that was in 2001. And then in 2009, I had a boyfriend who died by suicide. And I knew that I needed to do things differently. I
Mm.
needed to grieve differently. I needed to play an active role in my healing I had never done before. And so I did all of the things. I was in multiple support groups and read lots of books and changed the course of my career because it was such a profound, different experience than I had experienced in prior losses. And then lots of different losses in my life. There's many more, but I'll say those are the three that kind of have molded me to who I am today and who have guided my direction in the counseling field.
That's a lot. It's a lot of grief.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of grief and it's some unhealthy grief, and then lots of different ways of experiencing healthy grief. So I will say that I've learned avoiding grief is the worst thing you can do. And then outside of that anything that you do that invites your grief in your life, that invites you to integrate it in who you are, is healthy. As long as we don't try to avoid it, we can learn how to integrate it and heal through it. Whatever you're doing is going to work for you. It's when we avoid it that it causes the problems. So I have a couple of unhealthy, unpleasant ways. My first panic attack was 2 years after my stepdad died. And it was because we didn't talk about it. Suicide was a taboo word and it was not something we talked about. I didn't go to the funeral. Um, there was no goodbye, like all of the things, right? And that grief forced its way out of my body. It forced its way out through a panic attack. And it was to the day on the 2 year anniversary. And it was the scariest experience of my life up to that point. Having no control over your breathing, your body, the heaving. I'm sure some of you in this watching this live have experienced panic attacks. And I'll tell you, after that experience, I never, ever, ever wanted to experience it again. And so when I experienced my second suicide, I knew that I had to do things very differently. And by the grace of God, I have never had a panic attack since.
Wow. We've got a pretty unstable Wi-Fi that is. I don't know if you're noticing that on your end, Jessica. You're talking, and then all of a sudden it slows down, and then it speeds up.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Getting most of it, but
Is there just a delay or are you not able to hear me?
it's a there's a delay, and then you become frozen. Yeah. But we'll just keep going. We're just gonna make it work. In Jesus' name, we're gonna make this work. Come on, Lord, help us to fix this issue.
Yes, please. Well, I'm sorry about that. Do you want me to just start talking about some things I wanted to talk about, or do we want to try to fix
You know
the
what? Actually,
connection?
what do you want to try this? This sometimes works. Is if you sign off and then click that link and come back on, maybe it'll grab up. I don't know how it works, but try that. And in the meantime, I'll talk to the ladies here in the comments.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, so we have been on quite a journey with Wi-Fi connections, and I deeply apologize, but it is like under none of my control at all. So she's going to come back on. So say hi to Karen and Lynn and Debbie and Sandra and Paula and Lori and Sarah, Mary Lou, hi Carol and Christy. So nice to see you guys out here. And so, by the way, Jessica is going to be the counselor that's going to be at the retreat. And it's unfortunate that she's having this unstable internet because she's got a lot of good information. And I promise she's going to, there she is, she's going to come back on here. So please pray alongside me that this is going to work. All right, we're doing the countdown and we're back.
Okay. We're back.
We're
Is that
back.
better? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I think it is. I think it
Okay.
is. Thank you, Lord. Okay, so continue wherever you were. The last thing I heard, really, that they probably heard was when you were talking about the anxiety attack, which we know is a very unfortunate common term in all ages, right? And I guess one thing I would probably love to know is I've tried to tell them is like when you start to feel it coming on, there are certain things that you can do, right, in order to stop it and realize it's the body's response to, and I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. Like when I was in ninth grade and that happened, I had no idea what to do. I just started hyperventilating. And it wasn't the only thing that helped me in that moment was my friend who was looking for me at lunch. He found me in the classroom, like doubled over, hyperventilating. The teacher had given me her brown paper bag, lunch bag, and left the room because she didn't know what to do. And he just would his presence helped regulate my nervous system and helped me calm down so that I could start to breathe normally again and function. And then I went and found a safe adult who I could sit with for the rest of the lunch period. So in that instance, it had already gotten on top of me. It had gotten too big, but the regulation happened with somebody else. And so if you're ever in a place where you are having a panic attack, but you are with somebody, just having that presence of somebody else will help bring you out of it if you allow that. Like if you
Mm,
can feel their touch and notice what's happening, and breathe with them, you can match your breath to their breath, then your heart rate will slow down.
that's
So
good.
some things to prevent that from happening, though, is if you're noticing your body is becoming dysregulated, you can do things to snap your body out of it, like holding an ice cube or popping something sour in your mouth. That snaps your brain really quick out of that panic drive because you can't do two things at once, no matter how. I mean, we're all women and we think we can multitask like the best of them. But
Right.
the reality is you can't do two things at once when it comes to regulating your nervous system. So, sour things, ice, those can help instantly. Deep breathing, where you are breathing in and out slowly, in through your nose and out through your mouth. As long as your exhale is longer than your inhale, that's all that matters. So you don't have to stress about it. Just if you breathe in for 4, out for 6. Something about the counting and the deep breathing together takes your mind away from the panic and the fear and the anxiety, whatever is causing that, to regulate your nervous system so that you then can function and figure out what's happening in your body.
I have to say that when we had a ranch, I lived and had retreats on the ranch. We had the horses. And, for example, the reason why they use horses because they're always in that fight or flight, right? And
Yep.
so sometimes I'd be riding with the horse and sitting on his back and I pass by a rock and he's like, what is that? And he'd go into that. I could tell he's ready to go into his panic mode. And I literally would just gently flick him in the ear and then he would just snap out of it because I took him out of that, like, I've got to run away, something's going to kill me, to using his brain again. So it's the
Yep.
same thing.
Yeah, that's such a great example.
Hi, Brenda. Hi, Steffi, and Margie, and Angela, Sandy. Yeah, I do like that. That's a helpful thing because I know you ladies, there's plenty of you. We've all been in that situation where, you know, your body's just going through this thing and it is a real thing. And Jessica's going to be talking about the grief and that it's a real experience.
So one of the things that when my boyfriend died in '09, I went to a survivors of suicide loss support group. And I walked into that support group, and there was about 10 other people in there. All had experienced death by suicide, but all different relationships. And I remember going around the room and everybody introducing themselves, your name, who you lost, how long it had been. And everybody was pretty robotic at that. But then there was one person whose loss had been 3 years out, and she was still so raw. Like the pain was so raw. She was distraught. It was as if it had just happened yesterday. And I remember thinking, that can't be me. I can't, 3 years from now, I can't still feel the way I do today, the way she does. And so that is when I really took a very active role in my healing journey because I knew that um, I witnessed it. I witnessed how possible it was to be stuck in that raw pain that we all experience when there is a death, and to not feel like there is hope, to not be able to grow through that loss, to integrate that loss, and to be stuck. And so, witnessing that, I went home that night and I had to pull over on the side of the road because that was such a hard night doing your first support group and hearing stories and sharing your story. That is draining. It's emotionally draining. It is hard and it's raw. And I remember thinking, why in the world would anybody do this to themselves? Why would you do this? But by the grace of God, I went back and I don't know other than God is that's the only reason I went back because who would torture themselves like that? And I never had to pull over on the side of the road again. Like it was never as hard and painful as that first time was. And so
Mhm.
that's when I learned like, okay, if you do the work of grief, if you do the work of letting your body feel the feelings and process it in community the way God intended us to do, the way biology tells us to do, then we can function. We can get to a place of a new normal. Um, which is why I wanted to start with the Bible verse, Romans 12:15. It says, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn, or weep with those who weep, depending on which translation you're reading. And I like this Bible verse so much because first it says both are okay. God
Mm.
doesn't say do one or the other. He says it's both are appropriate and we don't have to hurry through it. But what I like even more about it is the being with people. So, biologically speaking, when we are born crying. And after our diaper has been changed and we've been fed and our airway has been cleared, after all of that, and we still cry, it's because we need regulation. We are born needing other people to help regulate our nervous system. And that
Mm.
does not change when you start walking or talking or when you turn 18. That is a lifetime need that we need co regulation with other people. And so, in grief, we often tend to isolate because that's what society has told us to do. We go to our room and cry, we cry in the shower, we do it alone. Um, but that is not biological and that is not biblical. And so, if we can dismantle that myth right off the bat, you are never meant to grieve alone. You are meant to be with people. That is how we start the journey of healing.
Why do you think people just as a default just go to wanting to isolate and be by themselves?
Because when we were little, we were told to go to your room and cry.
Mm, hmm.
And then
Yeah.
that those sayings were repeated over and over again. Don't do that. We don't do that in front of people. Go do that somewhere else. Go take a good bath. Go, feel better. Go take care of your hard needs that make us uncomfortable. And so then as we learn that over and over and over again, and never out of malice, nobody's ever doing this to be mean, right? They just teach what they were taught. But by the time we're grown, it's just instinctual. Oh,
Mm.
we need to retreat. We need to go be by ourselves because other people aren't comfortable with our grief.
Right. Right. And we don't want, and for me, it's like, today having a day, and I'm like, deciding like, who can I talk to? And then you're like, oh, I don't want to make them feel awkward because I'm having a day. By sharing, you think you're burdening them. I was sometimes think I'm burdening other people by that. And you know what to do. Pull up your bootstraps and go talk to Jesus, which is great. But there's just sometimes like we need a sounding board so that it's like if somebody goes, oh, that's why this community exists. I couldn't find my car in the parking lot either. You had that happen, and then it's like, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
You're not alone. You don't feel crazy. It's definitely when you're in community, you find connection.
Right, right. That's beautiful.
So, now that you know that there's a reason to be in this Facebook group, there's a reason to be in community. I hope you stay and I hope you continue utilizing this community because that's where healing happens. We hear each other's stories. There is no comparison in grief. There is no loss that is greater than another loss. But
Yep.
it is really nice to hear how other people process about their hard days, about their good days, about what works and what doesn't work for them because maybe we get a little nugget of wisdom from each person and we don't feel alone. So we
So
feel like we're
true.
in community and we're learning things from each other.
It's so true. And it is a safe place. These ladies know that it is a safe place because no one else, hardly anyone's going to understand.
Right. Right. Yeah. So grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss. It is the emotional experience. It's the result of change. It's often conflicting feelings that result from a change. And so sometimes those feelings are relief and despair, or shock and confusion, or peace and longing. So we have these conflicting feelings depending on the type of loss, and that's just a reaction to loss. That's a definition of grief. And so if we accept that, then we also have to accept that most of what we've learned about grief is not natural, not normal, and not healthy. So I'm going to give you permission to grieve the way God intends us to grieve, to trust your body, to trust your instinct, and to know that whatever your body is telling you to do in your grief is probably right. And
You have
go
this beautiful voice of authority in a way that is not it's not a command. It's like just factual that's saying, like, I feel like you're speaking to me, and I think they probably do too. Like you're speaking to me, like say, hey, girl, mom, like, no, this is okay. Stop trying to mess around and kid yourself. You
yeah,
can't do this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. Thank you for saying
No,
that.
that's what I'm getting. I'm just giving it right back. Yeah.
So grief isn't all just sadness. It's longing, it's anger, it's confusion, it's gratitude sometimes, there's fear, there's so many conflicting feelings around it. And what in America at least, I know that sometimes there's people from other countries and so maybe you put in the chat if this is not in your culture, but at least in America we are taught pull up your bootstraps for sure. Be strong or be strong for other people. If you're a mom to other living children, you got to be strong for your kids. Um Grief just takes time. Don't cry, keep busy. Like we're told all of these messages about grief, but the reality is all of those messages don't take away your grief. It just
Right.
prolongs it or it makes you want to isolate even more, which isolation is one of the biggest predictors of depression. And so don't do that. Don't isolate. Like reach at least come to this Facebook group at the very least. Um, because we don't want to add depression on top of grief. Because doctors will see you and they're going to diagnose you with depression when it's grief. And you don't want it to really be depression, too. And so the myths of keeping busy, focus on the positive, at least they're in a better place, all of the things people say to make your grief better or to convince you to be done with it are not helpful. They're also not by God's design. We are created perfectly, and sometimes we think we know better. than
Hmm.
God, and we don't. And so we need to take a step back and trust that our bodies are designed with intention and perfectly, and we just need to trust that they know what to do.
Yeah, that's all so good. Yeah, speak that with conviction. I love that. Uh, is there and you here's this is Jennifer's watching from the Philippines. How I mean I don't know if it's different even in the Philippines as to what the culture teaches. I think worldwide it's pretty safe. I know that we have moms down in South Africa, and it's very difficult for them to be able to share their grief with other people.
Yeah. Well, so that's interesting because in some in some cultures, people wear mourning clothes for a year. And so
That's
some people wear like the black clothes so strangers know. And when you're walking down the street, a stranger will see you and they will acknowledge your grief. And so you don't have to shy away from it. You don't have to hide from it. Some cultures have those like wristbands that look like those sweatbands that you wear when you're working out.
uh-huh.
There's some cultures that have a specific color that people wear when they're grieving. And so people will acknowledge it instead of shying away from it or running away from it. And I think that's so beautiful. And it's only done for a period of time, depending on the culture, but it invites other people to acknowledge your grief so that you don't feel like you have to protect them from it.
Hmm. I like that.
Isn't that
Yeah,
so
and it's
great?
biblical was they'd wear the sackcloth, right? That was what
Mhm.
they would wear back then too. And it's almost like, was it representation of saying, I'm grieving, back off, or was it also an invitation for somebody to come over and just give you a hug or sit and
Yeah.
pray with you or something?
Right. I don't think, I mean, in my heart of hearts, not at all back off. It was an invitation. Like, please
Mhm.
acknowledge my grief. This is me mourning. So mourning is like the things we do to show people that we're grieving. That's what mourning is. And grief is the internal experience of it. And so when we can mourn openly, that is how we heal because
Mhm.
people acknowledge it and they don't make it better. All of you here know that. Nobody can make it better. Nobody can bring your child back. Um, Nobody can fix it, but people can acknowledge it and sit with it with you.
Yeah.
That's the gift that people can give us. Like, that's what we can give each other. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Like, that's the gift. We do it together with the good and the bad, or the
Which
hard
is why we
and the
do the
easy.
retreats, which
Yeah.
is that's why there's so much healing that takes place at our retreats. Where if you're just coming in, Jessica is going to be speaking there, which I'm so super excited about because we're just getting a little appetizer of this right now. So I'm sure she's going to have a wealth of information. We have a scripture that we're going to be basing the whole weekend on, which I'm not going to tell you because we like to leave a lot of uh, exciting surprises, not scary ones. A lot of the women are like, "What are you going to make us do this time?" And I'm like, they keep coming back, so they keep coming back. I'm so sorry, Brianne, about losing your 9-year-old daughter for breast cancer. Oh my, or brain cancer. That was just in April.
Mm.
That's what we were praying before we came on, and I said there's going to be moms on here that it may have just happened this last week, or like in your case, just a few months ago. So I'm so glad that you're here. I'm sorry you have to be here, but yeah, this is all good. So what other good nuggets do you have for us?
So God designed us perfectly. He designed us to grieve. And I think as we hear these messages about grief our entire life, we forget how to trust ourselves. And if you look at children, when they grieve so beautifully. Um, for example, like if a kid pet turtle dies, they will cry and then they're going to go play. And then they're going to bury their turtle and they're going to say really sweet things. They're going to say, I'm so sorry that I didn't feed you your favorite food the day you died. Thank you so much for spending these last 4 years with me. I hope you'll forgive me for not feeding you. You know, they say these sweet, sweet little things and then they go play. And then maybe a week later, they go back to where they buried their turtle and they just sit with it for a little bit and then they go play. And so kids model really, really healthy grief as long as us adults stay out of their way. As long as
Oh
we
yeah,
don't try to tell them anything really about their grief, we just let them lead it. They do a really great job. But most people don't know how to be comfortable with kids' grief. And so we try to fix it, or we try to give platitudes, make it better, make it pretty, whatever. We do things because it's uncomfortable. And so then when we're grown and we've experienced a major loss, we don't know how to trust our body anymore. We
Mm,
don't know how to feel our grief the way it's intended to be felt, um, because we've been taught our whole life not to.
yeah. I
So
know that my grandsons that were 6 and 4 when, the landslide happened, they really did not wanna talk about it at all. And
mhm.
maybe it was a shock for them, I'm not sure. But yeah, they just shut down, like, we weren't to this day, it's, like, difficult to even talk about it, and I wish that they had a healthier outlook of that, and I don't I mean, we made it an open invitation for them, we encouraged them to do it, but you think that was probably because they were just protecting themselves because they didn't wanna revisit the
Maybe, but they also follow the adults' lead. And so, like if were the adults in their lives open with their grief in front of them?
Yeah, and the whole house was, like, in tears constantly,
Yeah,
uh, and actually just kinda coddling and coming around them for the most part because we were so concerned about them being they were so young.
right. Well, and at 4 years old, you don't know what death means. You don't understand the concreteness of it, and so it's just this like abstract idea. And so at 4 years old, that makes sense to me that they didn't really have much experience with it because they don't really know what that means to never breathe again.
Right.
Um, and you said 6 years old too, was the other.
Yeah, and I think his whole thing was he was really angry, just really angry.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be protective, it could be a lack of understanding. Also, kids oftentimes don't grieve until they hit puberty, and then all of the hormones start going
Mm,
wild, and then everything that they didn't deal with when they were little comes, like, coming
mm,
through, like, as
yeah.
anger or as disobedience or all sorts of behaviors, and the parents are like, "What's going on with my kid?" And oftentimes it's unresolved grief.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, because he's 17 now, and he definitely shares it. He writes beautiful, like, letters and stuff to his mom, like my son like his dad did, actually, which at least he's getting it out, that way,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing.
Mm.
That's what I tell the moms too. I'm like, "Write it out,
Yep.
write it write." I journal a few times a week to Jesus and just I vent or I thank him or just you gotta have an outlet, right, Jessica? You have to
Yeah.
get it out somehow.
Yeah, I love that. An art therapist once told me your hand is what connects your head and your heart when they're disconnected. And that's
Mm,
why journaling, clay, working with clay, any artistic things, that's why that works. That's why it's so helpful
that
because it
is
connects the two.
awesome. That is so awesome. I love that. Yeah.
Mm,
See, you
okay.
guys, I'm not crazy. I told you guys there was a thing about journaling. There was a reason behind it. I just didn't have it. I just needed Jessica to explain it to you.
There is a reason.
Uh-huh.
So, if our bodies are designed perfectly, I love how in the Bible, Jesus became to earth fully human, right? He was fully God and fully human so that he could experience what it was to be fully human. And one of the chapters or verses or stories in the Bible that I share all the time is when Lazarus died.
Yes.
So this story, I hope, gives you permission to grieve. So Jesus knew, he got word that Lazarus was dying, and he did not rush to him. He did not say, "Come on, boys, let's go. We got to go save Lazarus." No, he said, "We're going to stay here for 2 more days. For 2 more days, we're going to stay and wait, and then we're going to go." And so he was making a point, right? Like, even in that, he's making a point, like, I'm about to do something profound. But when Jesus got there, Mary came out running to him, and Jesus, Jesus, you're too late. You're too late. He's dead. Um, you didn't get here in time. And did he perform his miracle right away?
That's right. Yeah.
He he groaned in the spirit.
Yeah.
He audibly groaned. I love the King James version because it says he groaned in the spirit. That means like his grief was so raw, so painful you could hear it. He did
Hmm.
not hide the pain, even though he knew he was about to perform this miracle. He knew he was going to raise him from the dead and he was going to show the world who he was. Like he knew this was going to happen, but he did not prevent the grief from happening. He let himself fully experience the grief of the death of Lazarus. And to me, if Jesus, who was fully God but fully human, allowed himself to grieve, allowed his body to groan, to moan, to hurt deeply, even though hope was coming, even though joy was coming, then we are allowed to. We are allowed to be fully human, and we are allowed to grieve completely.
Yeah, and they weren't in the process of receiving a lesson when they were there physically with him. But thousands of years later, there was purpose in that lesson. But typical, we're like, why did he do that? I mean, that was lame. People just they miss the lesson in that and the permission, like you say,
Yeah.
to be able to cry.
Yeah.
And I mean, what the greatest example is right there before us on so many levels of things that he did, and yet we always have to, well, no, I just don't do that. Those attitudes. When then, as the saying goes, well, how is that working for you? And I can
Right.
say that to myself all day long.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. So God is not uncomfortable with our tears. He welcomes them. He is the model of how to trust your body, how to do what it's intended to do. Um, and so I hope that if we acknowledge that God allowed himself to grieve first, that tells you that you're allowed to grieve first. You're allowed to trust your body.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that.
I'm so sorry. Just one moment. My kids are knocking at the door and they're
Yeah,
not
yeah, no
stopping.
worries. I'm going to read Brienne. I have four other children, ages 9, 8, and 4, and they have a hard time processing grief. My other son shuts down a lot. I don't know how to help them. They are in counseling as well. I often show my grief around them. Yeah, so Brienne is sharing. Is everything okay?
Yes, everything's fine.
Okay. Uh, Brienne is giving a perfect example of what I was just talking about with the kids. And um, yeah, and well, she's got one that's 4. They don't understand, which makes sense. The concept of grief. People stop breathing. They don't understand what that was. And that's probably why my grandson Jack he doesn't even really remember like what had happened, on that
Yeah.
particular night. So he was protected from it. But we are sorry, Brienne. One day at a time, friend. And being here was the most courageous thing that you could do, to be honest. There's a lot of things, but I'm saying just to be here and to find a safe place to open up like that was beautiful.
So, how do we learn how to live with our grief?
Yeah, big question.
We can either avoid it and we can run away from it and pretend like it never happened, which, if you remember from my story, that doesn't work well ever.
Yeah, how is that working for you, Jessica?
Does not work well. It's very uncomfortable at the least, and it can be detrimental at the most. And so, instead, if we can learn how to live with our grief, if we can learn how to integrate our grief into our story, then it just becomes part of who we are. And I know nobody likes to hear the new normal, right? But the reality is, you are never going to be who you were before your child died. You're
That's right.
not. You're not. You are now a mom with a child in heaven, or with so many living and so many deceased. And so you can't go back. That is impossible. All you can do is move forward with. And I don't think relationships end with death. There's this idea of continuing bonds in therapy where relationships don't end with death, they just change. And like Jackie said, she's journaling to God, she's talking about her story, she wrote a book. Like, that relationship with her child changed, um, but it didn't go away, it didn't end, it just transformed. And so there is no getting over it. I know people will say really dumb things like, aren't you over it yet? No. No, you're not, because your relationship mattered, your child mattered, matters. There
And
is
what
no
did you
getting
say
over
that
it.
you said to somebody in response to that when we were what was the
Yeah,
thing?
yeah. That's not helpful. Please don't say that again.
There you go, you guys. If you
Yeah.
hear that, you're not being rude.
No.
You're just educating them.
Yes. Well, and most of the time when people say things that are hurtful, they don't know it. They don't know that it's hurtful. And when we say, please don't say that again, depending on your relationship with that person, they might say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. What should I say? Or what
That's
could I have said differently? And what a beautiful opportunity to say, this is what actually helps me.
yeah. Yeah, and you would hope that there's more than not of people that would ask to be corrected and redirected, but depending on their spiritual walk as well.
Right. Right. So if we learn how to integrate our loss, that means some days we're going to laugh, some days we're going to cry, some days we're going to do both, days we're going to curl up into a ball and not want to get up, um, and some days we're going to avoid talking about it altogether. But that's not all days. That's not every day. That's called the dual process model of grief. So the dual process model of grief is like a seesaw, and you have your grief and life functioning. So, like living in your grief, crying, despair, longing, hurt, pain, and then paying the bills, going to work, um, putting on a happy face, running errands, whatever that's functioning, right? So you have this seesaw, and in the beginning of the loss, like when it just happens, you're mostly here, mostly grief, very little functioning.
Mhm.
And then after a while, you have to function. You have to pay your mortgage or you have to go buy groceries or whatever it is. And so then you're forced into like functioning mode. And then if we're navigating grief in a healthy way, eventually you do this really sweet balancing act where
Mhm.
we grieve and we live and we grieve and we live and we integrate it until it just becomes part of who we are. We laugh, we worship, we cry, we remember, we do all of it. And we're not living in one or the other, where we're not avoiding it altogether all the time and we're not in that deep despair all the time.
Yeah. And that's why everybody says that time heals. It's not that you just learn how to live in both of those worlds.
Right. So
Mhm.
time heals is a lie, right? There's nothing about time that's magical. There's not a magical wand that says, okay, 5 years from now, you're all better. But with time, it does take time to do the work of healing, to do
Exactly.
the work of integrating your grief. And so if you're willing to do the work, that does take time. But just I like the analogy of like when you get a flat tire and if you get out of the car and like pull up a lounge chair and like, okay, it just takes time, it's going to air itself back up. That's what we say about grief. It just takes time. Is that tire ever going to air itself back
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
No. But if you do the work of grief, if you engage with it, if you allow it to happen the way your body is inviting you to process it, that does take time. And
Mhm.
eventually you get to like homeostasis where the grief and the functioning is just this really sweet seesaw that doesn't move too drastically
Mhm.
anymore.
When you talk about doing the work of grief, of course, for anyone, the work usually equates to that's going to be hard. So, but what would be so maybe the top few things that you would like say that are considered to be work that you could do to start this process?
Yeah, what a great question. Um, First, I want to say choose your hard, right? Doing the work of grief is
Mm,
hard, but also is avoiding it is hard too.
right.
Both are exhausting. Both hurt your body. One sets you up for potential panic attacks a few years down the road. So choose your heart. Um, so some things to do. The work of grief is to not run from it. So what that means is when your body becomes weepy, allow that to happen. When you are tearful, allow the tears to come. When you are reminiscent, go down the memories and think about the memories and let it hurt. Let it hurt with somebody. Invite somebody into your grief, and share stories, and um, feel feel the uncomfortable feelings, because they don't last forever. We get so fearful that the hurt is going to be too much to bear, that we try to avoid it. And so we'll dip our toe into it. We'll dip our toe and we'll cry a little bit, and then we're like, okay, and well, I'm fine, and function again, instead of letting it just be the raw pain that it is. Because that's scary. And I get it. It is so scary. And I am an awful crier. Like, I get all red and splotchy and snotty, and it's not fun. But
You got the ugly cry like we all do. Yeah.
oh, it's so bad. But if you don't allow that to happen, eventually it will force its way out. So feelings are meant to be felt, experienced, and done with. So when a feeling comes up, we are supposed to experience it however our body tells us to, whether that is screaming in a pillow, or crying, or yelling out loud, or even like being angry at the situation. We experience that emotion, and then we go back to homeostasis. The problem is, whenever grief comes, the idea of experiencing it is so scary that we just tuck it back in. And then we're never back at homeostasis. We're never back at normal functioning. We're constantly adding more and more pain in our body, and that energy needs somewhere to go. And eventually it forces its way out through panic attacks, through ulcers, through jaw pain. I once had a woman come to me whose mother had died, and she came in just the raw emotional pain. And she said, Jessica, this death can't turn to cancer. I cannot let her death kill me. And I thought, you get it, and it's not going to. Because she intuitively knew if she avoided this pain that hurt so bad, that it would cause more pain eventually.
Seriously, hope you guys really heard what she just said, because that is something that we talk about so much. Because it's, if you don't find a way to let it go, I think it's like, we can talk about the work of grief. We can also talk about the flow of grief,
Mm,
which is to flow with it as it comes to us. And I often, use mountains in the ministry about, you can stand at the base of the mountain forever and just keep looking up at it, but you're not gonna get there until you just take one step, even if it's just one step a day. The next day, take another step, and then don't stay stuck on the side of the mountain, because you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get cold, you're gonna be exposed to some elements. You've got to just keep moving, even if it's little tiny steps. And what is harder at the end of the day is trying to fight stuffing it versus do that hard thing and just get it out and open up to your counselor or to a pastor or to a friend and get it out, and then you feel like so much better, like,
yeah.
and then you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Yeah, I had an ugly cry, but I just feel so much better. It's the body's like release. I mean, God designed our bodies in a pretty amazing way. We just need to tap into that.
Ugh. So Ecclesiastes 3:4 says, there is a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. It does
Amen.
not say choose one. It says there's a time for all of
That's
it.
great. Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to balance it all out. Like, not every day is going to be a good day, and that's just life. That is just life. But it's
Yeah.
in those moments, I know for a fact that, the tough days, as today would be a tough day, but what did I learn from that? Well, I learned to trust Jesus through this, because I before come on here and I just like, thy will be done. I get to come on and talk to my new amazing friend. We get to share some amazing things with these women in hopes to give them hope. And most importantly, we get to be the messengers for the Lord, right? Through your gift, through my gift, through each one of you that are watching. You guys all have gifts. We get to be the messenger, and someone will miss out on what it is that is in your story to give hope and healing to somebody else. And so that's why we always talk about the God of all comfort that comforts us so that we can comfort others. But
Yep.
first, you have to be well. First, you have to pick up your mat and you have to trust him and say, yes, I do want to be healed. Because if
Right.
we were talking about that earlier too, with Jessica, I said, so many women will say, I'm never going to experience joy. I'm never going to laugh again. Okay, well, that's powerful and that's where
Mm.
you will stay. So
Yep.
it's a choice, right?
Yeah, your brain is powerful. Our brains are brilliant, but they believe what we tell it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true.
Mm. Well, I wanted to briefly talk on guilt because I know that we've talked about how oftentimes that's a word that we use in grief. Um, and I just want to challenge everybody here not to use that word. The word guilt implies wrongdoing. So it's a noun, and it means like when a person is sentenced for
Mhm.
robbing a bank, they are guilty. They did something wrong. It was intentional, and they got caught.
Mhm.
That is guilt. That person was guilty because they did something that was intended for harm.
That's so good.
Nobody in here intended harm on their child. I know that. I haven't met a single one of you watching, but I know that you did not intend harm for your child.
Mm.
So maybe the word is regret, or maybe it's remorse. But guilt leads to shame. And when we get in the shame cycle, it's really hard to get out of it. And so I'm going
Right.
to challenge you, if you think you feel guilty, the word doesn't change a lot, but it sure does change your mindset around it. Maybe it's regret. And maybe we start there and start to say, I regret not doing something, or I regret whatever that is, so that you don't lead down this slippery slope to shame and then deep
Okay, we're
depression.
not going to use that word, you guys. Can anybody accept that challenge? Because I hear it a lot from this ministry. And it's not like you're a bad person by saying that. It's just the normal vocabulary that we will
Right.
say. And it
Oh, for
seems
sure.
doesn't guilt usually seem to also take the place of something like when it doesn't make sense to us is how things happen, this gives it an explanation. Well, I'm guilty because I didn't blah, blah, blah. And
Mm,
then you can put it to rest.
mm-hmm. Well, right, because we are meaning making beings. Like we by nature are always trying to make sense of the world. And when your child dies, that never makes sense. It goes against the natural order of things. That's never going to make sense. And so we are always trying to make sense of our world and create meaning. And so maybe that's a really good point. Maybe that's our way of trying to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so we're not going to use the, uh, what is this? I can't think of this. I've seen a lot of comments. I will definitely come back to these, you guys. No, I like this. This is all really, it's a different perspective on looking at it, which is good.
Good. So if we say that we're not going to use that word guilt, even if you just say, okay, Jessica, I won't say guilt. I still feel it, whatever, but I'm not going to say the word guilt, and I'm going to say regret or sorrow, or I feel even helpless, maybe. Um, then I want to take you back to the Bible where it says in Romans, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Yep.
So if God is not condemning you, right? Because guilt implies wrongdoing. And if God is not condemning you, then that's just another reason to not use that word.
Yeah. Yeah, love that. I mean, just go back to scripture. All
Yeah.
of those things that we say and we don't feel good about when we say them. I mean, what does the Lord say? Weigh it against
Yeah.
God's word.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
look at you say, so Steffi's saying yes, amen, no guilt. Good
Yes.
job. Good job, Sandy.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's good.
So, if I can leave you with anything, it's you don't have to replace your child to live your life. You don't have to choose between grieving and living. You can do both. My encouragement is to not get stuck in one or the other, to learn how to integrate it, to allow both to happen at the same time, and to allow yourself to live your life alongside your grief.
I like that. Say that again about living without your child.
You don't have to choose between loving your child and your grief and living your life. You can do both.
That is really that's a delicate balance
Mm,
because a lot of people just think their life is over,
yeah.
whenever that happens. And the question I ask every time is, what would your child want you to do?
Mm,
I know that mine would not want me to just sit around because he's going to be like, Mom, get up, do something. Take back what the enemy tried to steal in Jesus' name and do something about it because we're going to be reunited.
yeah.
And that is, I mean, I always just think about like the Lord too. Like I think about the gratitude that I do have. Yes, it's been difficult, but I look back at all the things that he's done in my life, and I have to say, in this ministry, it has been the greatest gift despite the tragedy that has happened in my life, is to have the greatest gift. I have the greatest friends in this ministry, the greatest audience that, leave their comments, and they're very transparent and just raw, and they come together, and it just blesses me. We've got, and you were talking about other countries. Diane has been with us for a long time. She's from Australia. And I think Diane was just saying, I missed the comment, Diane, but you've got your group finally, after she's been trying for years and years to get a group together, to get it started. So God is definitely on the move for sure.
Mm, that's so good. There's a lady I did a podcast with in Australia, um, and I feel like, and she's a grief coach, um, and she's so great. She's so great. So I might come back in the comments and I'll share her information just so you can have a connection piece there. Um, I think it's Hope. It's Hope is the name of her ministry. I think that's what it is, but I will find it to be sure and put it in the comments.
So she's in Australia?
Yeah,
Oh,
Tanzania.
okay.
Yep.
I can't remember exactly where, Diane, the name of your town. I think I remember, but I don't recall. But I mean, people are like, "Oh yeah, I know somebody in Europe." Okay, well, there's. I'm sure that I probably don't know them, but you just never know. You just never know. Well, this has been a great conversation. And Jessica, I know that the moms are going to just take so much from you as well at the retreat, and you're going to get to meet them and hug them. And I mean, it's one thing to see comments here, but it's another thing when you actually get to meet them. It is just such a gift. And thank you, Nancy. Thank you for you being here and supporting the ministry. And thanks to all of you guys. And I know Jessica was on here watching last week, and I think she had talked about, we have still some openings for the retreat. She was going to spread the word. She's down in Texas, very near to where the retreat center is going to be. There's a brand new baby Highland cow that was born, there, which I know it'll be older by the time that we get there. But there's just this amazing, adorable animals and water sports and kayaking, different things. But it's going to be a weekend filled with a lot of the things that Jessica talked about. The place to release that, to talk about it, to integrate, to share, to love, to pray, to worship, all of those things in one big healing venue.
Yeah.
And I'm just honored to have you be a part of that, Jessica, when this happens, and grateful that Stacy found you. Stacy's always good at finding the peeps that are in the area that we're going to be doing the retreat. So, yeah, I thank you for all that you shared. It was quite a bit. Is there any closing things that you'd like to say to the moms here? You
Trust your
said
body.
it all.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. That's what I would say. That's what I tell all of my clients that sit across the office from me. Trust your body. Don't fight it.
Hmm. That's one thing that I have learned to do is being very in touch with my body, doing like it has given me, it's given you guys all so much. It has carried you through all of this. And that's what we talk so much about. Thank you, Patty, so much for being here and for the comment here, friend. It has Jesus ultimately has carried us through all this grief. We know that. But we also have to just remember we got to eat well, we have to sleep well. And I know that's easier said than done, but just thinking about all that your body's done. And, I know that my physical therapist always tells us to put, you're welcome, Christy. Thank you so much for being here. To put my hand on my heart and just to ask, like, what do you need?
Mm.
What do you need today? Take those breaths, because we don't breathe enough. We just take shallow breaths, and there's so much to the breathing and the connection, and I could go on and on about all that. I have read more books about it because I've experienced it all. I've experienced gallbladder and just blockage from that and digesting of food, neck pain, like I've experienced it all. And yet I just keep praying and saying, God, what do you want me to do? And I just keep following his lead. But that's a very good, very, very good thing to take away with. Anyways, thanks you guys for all of your comments. And it looks like that you really did bless these ladies a lot, Jessica. So I appreciate you. And you and I will be in touch as the preparation for the retreat goes on. And to all of you guys that are here, I end with this. And I know that Jessica would agree 1000% is that you're going to be okay.
Mm.
You are definitely going to be okay. Trust the Lord, trust your body. All right. Good night, everyone.